Hi again. We're gonna start again. So we're gonna see the 3 remaining projects. And if everybody's ready, thank you. So here is Mandragora team. Mandragora.
Hello everyone, thank you all for being here. We're now going to introduce you to a project called named Mandragora. My bad. Okay, the product overview. So it's a solo experience, VR experience, developed on HTC Vive. We call it, for the theme, a science fantasy world. We want to sell it to B2B2C, and we want to do it in China. But for those of you who were here the first time, you already heard about this, and I talk about that a little bit later.
So, at the beginning of our project, we were thinking about creating a magical game with puzzles and challenges, because we really want to put emphasis on the visual aspect and to create a lot of different rewarding interactions. But the project has evolved a lot since then, and so now Mandragora is a VR experience where you can create your own planets and throw them into orbit around a star at the center of a wonderful room. So the visual aspect is still very important. We really want to place the user inside a wonderful setting and to provide them with a sense of peaceful power, something really calm that goes along with this cosmic universe. What's really new is that we want the user to feel free to create and discover a room while personalizing his or her own planets through various interaction based on movements, as if you were really shaping this planet with your own hands. And we intend to guide the user smoothly through the different workshops by using lights and environmental storytelling. So in Mandragora, you will discover all the various interactions of the game to understand how to create your own planet, but not only one, but a whole system in orbit around that star. For our vertical slice, we are working on this room. We intend to create 3 different zones, and you will be able to carry a planet across these zones and this room to try different workshops. What we are trying to do, for instance, is to create a zone above the other to really play on different points of view and the visual appeal of the room. So I'm going to give you an overview of the different interactions that we will provide in this vertical slice. So first, of course, you will need to create and to make a planet appear. So this first interaction is the constellation drawing. With this interaction, we really want to play with the shape of the constellation to create interesting movement for the player. Then, since you have your planet now, you can carry it to another zone where you will have the power to change its size. What's interesting about it is this interaction is that not only can you change the size of your planet, but of any objects in the room to inside the player to try and explore the space around. Then you will be able to create some shapes on your planet with pulling and pushing some tiles as if you were really sculpting it with your own hands. Another workshop will then allow you to customize it more again by playing some little elements on it, such as volcanoes, trees, mountains, The idea for this workshop is to really place these little elements all around and make the user search the zone. And finally, when you are satisfied with your planet, you can throw it into orbit around the star at the center of the room. And here again, we will let you the possibility to throw not only your planet, but any object in the room, so you should be able to create some surprising systems. A feature that we just developed is also the ability to teleport onto your planet that you've just created, to zoom into it, to again play with a different point of view. And we're still working on how and when this would take place in the vertical slice. So now you see the different workshops you could find in the room. The reason why we choose to use teleport zones to move across the room instead of letting the player free to point a specific space is to avoid the player to be too static, and so they still have to move inside the zone to interact with different workshops. Each workshop is at a specific interaction point, which means you can't confuse the different inputs of the player, and it gives clarity to what you're doing at what point. And finally, to make to carry more easily objects and planets across the room, and in a more enjoyable way, we have a system to grab objects from a distance. So that's what you can see on this video. First, the teleportation. And then you can grab objects that are far away.
For the art direction, we wanted the user to have a dreamlike sensorial experience and to feel a peaceful plenitude. For that, we have two main lights, one coming from the space, it's a dark, cold blue, and another one, far brighter, is the central star. It's really warm and gets warmer and warmer when the player goes from a workshop to another. Combined, the two lights provide a dimmed light on the scene and puts the player in the right mood to enjoy the experience. We also wanted the user to know he can take his time, all the time he wants, to do whatever he wants. So we made a spacious room where everything is moving very slowly. It gives this impression that the environment is waiting for the player to do something. As we emphasize on the user experience, we added a lot of interactive objects with appealing shapes that the player can play with. And they are useful also to provide storytelling in the scene and helps guide the player through the different workshops. And finally, to enhance these sensations of power and the fun of interactive, we added a lot of interactive VFX.
For the audio, the music is based on the star, which is the principal visual elements of the experience. So at the beginning there is no music but just an eerie soundscape surrounding the player, and as soon as the user Lights of the Sun, the diegetic music starts and is completed with elements on different workshops that you unlock through time. And about the sound design, this has a magic, dreamy aspect, as you've just seen, for the stars, the use of the chimes, for example. And there is an important part on specialization and filtering, especially for the planets in orbits, and the grab power. So there is just two sound related. One is on the hand and one is on the object being manipulated. So I use wise settings, attenuation settings to have this feeling of attraction using a low pass filter and a crescendo effect. And technically, for a better acoustic, I use ambisonic impulse response for reverb, and along with binaural Auro 3D plugin to enhance the immersion of the player. Thank you.
In terms of user experience, we are not using any voices or any text, so we had to find a way to guide the player, and we're trying to do this through lights and staging, as well as environmental storytelling. So that's just a quick example. We have the scaling workshop, where we put a couple of planets with different sizes, and hopefully the player will understand that, the user, sorry, will understand that he can scale his objects at this workshop. In terms of atmosphere, you've seen this all through the presentation. We want power to meet peaceful sensation. So we're doing this through well, everything they've shown, lights and also slow movements. So grabbing, like you saw earlier, is really, really slow. Everything is supposed to be really smooth and fluid. Also, in order to improve UX and playtest feedbacks, especially since we are planning on doing a soft launch, we got closer to Aldin Dynamics. They've been working and developing Waltz of the Wizards, but also in the background, what they're proving with Waltz of the Wizard is their technology, their suite called Ghostline. It's a bunch of tracking systems and feedbacks you can get only from the headset and the controllers. So you plug that to your engine, and hopefully they agree with us to help us use this technology and improve our feedbacks and know better where the player is the user. Sorry, it's new for us. The user is going away from what we've planned and where we should emphasis on interactivity or not. So yeah, back to China. I know it's a big question. Well, like I said the first time, VR is not a mature product yet, at least not in Western countries. And LB is also a lot more developed in China. There are about 3,000 offline places where you can play VR in China. So that's why we're going to China, especially since we want to sell to B2B and then to C. So everything I just said here, also China, they don't have much room at home to play VR, so they are used to go to those places. And also China has been focusing on developing hardware for VR, but not software. So they're asking for new content, and we're trying to provide them with content with Mandragora. And the government has been investing a lot of money on new technologies, and especially VR. So we had a bunch of risks at first. Technical risks, VR, customizing planets, and teleporting, but all those are tackled. Design challenge, VR and motion sickness. A couple of our first playtests showed that there was no sickness at all whatsoever. So we're good with that. We're still working on environmental storytelling and social feature for the Chinese market. We've thought about a couple of things, but we're not sure yet. Lots of competitors to come, one user experience. Remember also the soft launch. At first we talked about Paris because we talked to a couple of places in Paris that we know, but we don't think it's the best place to do a soft launch for the Chinese market. So hopefully Hong Kong is an easier place to get into than China in general, and user habits should be closer to Chinese users also. So we are trying to reach Hong Kong for the soft launch. Chinese market is a big challenge, of course. We need a local partner, Tencent, NetEase, or Alibaba, or whatever. But we'll see later on. Localization, no text, no voice acting, so that's gone too. Government submissions, they were frozen last time. They are back to normals, sort of, but they're still government submission, so it's a lot tougher than first-party submission. Chinese culture and censorship was a big topic when we had magical themes. It's less of a big issue right now, so it's not a big warning, but we can't get rid of that, and we keep that in mind. Our USPs, unexpected art direction for VR. You model your own planetary system. A complete set of tools to create your own universe. We want, like we said so many times, feel powerful and relaxed at the same time. The snap and share your own creations is an idea we have for social features, pretty easy to do. We'll see if we go further with that. And great visual spectacles to experience in VR, so it's really a sensorial experience we want you to feel from the get-go right when you put the headset on. So thank you everyone for listening, and Happy New Year. And I invite the team to calm down, and you can applaud them.
Thank you. First question, comments? Yep. Vous pouvez utiliser les micros ici.
Hi, thanks a lot for the presentation. I thought it was really great, and I did not have any feedback to provide, but I wanted to know how you had something that was okay, and that was in a pretty good direction, even if it was not the most original concept out there. And my question was, how did you decide to take that thing that was good enough and to try to make something that was even better than that? Because sometimes it's difficult when you're in a very bad situation, you don't have any choice but to do something different. But I guess you were in an okay situation, but you still decided to do something much more innovative and different. And I wanted to know how that came up. And then just one final thing. So you're back with the Chinese thing, and I understand why you're putting it up front, because it's something to talk about and you can have reactions. But I'm also wondering, in a realistically, if it would not be more interesting, I don't know, to maybe propose this concept to science museum, to have some kind of exhibition, something that could actually happen and not just be a plan we could do if we had like millions of euros in budget. But I think you have a great concept, and that could be an interesting thing to do. And I think a few partners in France could be interested with that.
So I don't think the mic are working on the desk, so we're gonna ask. Which one?
Well, thank you for your questions. For first, how do we move from okay concept to, like you said, better concept? We didn't feel at ease with the first concept. We had too many directions we could go to, and we could not settle on one. So smoothly and not really intentionally, we kind of move away from that, but trying to keep the visual spectacle we wanted and everything. And after a couple of prototypes, a couple of things came out, and we like that. We stick to that a couple months, weeks more, and we came out with that, and we feel better, we feel more at ease and satisfied with that. So that was pretty smooth and conscious. For China, it's not impossible to do. We're trying. I don't have enough interaction with those people yet, but we're trying to talk to local people there and potential partners. The idea about museum, we had a couple of plan Bs. Museum wasn't one. We didn't come up with that one, but that's a good one. So we're definitely going to explore this direction. But yeah, we have plan Bs, such as maybe just talking to HTC Vives or hardware creators first to give them just an experience and sell this. The idea, sum it up, the idea is just to sell the product once and for all, and that's it, and not having to trying to distribute it to people. That's the main idea behind this. Thank you.
Once you ended the experience, you paid for your ticket and you created your own galaxy. You leave, and what does it become? Do you have access to it online? Does it create a full universe with other users' galaxies? Something like that.
Thank you for the question. So social features, pretty much. So also China, they don't pay by the ticket. I don't think it's the same in France. It's more by the time you spend in the experience. So that's also why we wanted to go this way. Social features, yeah, the idea is, well, we talk about snapshotting your creations or taking videos and sending them to you, and so you can do whatever you want with that. But yeah, we're thinking about having a platform where you can see all different creations online. We haven't thought about combining them with other players yet, but that could be a great direction as well.
In the core experience, I can take a planet and then I toss it. Does the size of the planet affect its orbit? Does my speed of tossing affect the orbit? It definitely indicates the direction, but the acceleration is, how much control do I have over the orbits? And do the orbits of multiple planets affect each other, or are they just isolated?
Our intention with throwing planet into orbit was really to make it easy and enjoyable. We have a previous system which was you needed to be more accurate when you were throwing the planet, and it was not really interesting for the player. It didn't give this tranquil, powerful mood. So we decided to go away on that and really create a more simple interaction. And for now there is not a complex system about the orbits. The planet does not influence one another.
Another question?
Hi, hello. I really enjoyed what you decided to do, and I think it's a really, really great idea. And I'm just a bit of a reaction about what just been said. It's I'm not a specialist on VR and how you detect the movement of the hand and how subtle it can be. But I was wondering how far you want to go or you can go with that. For instance, it's a bit related to the question, the speed of the movement you're doing. What can be the impact of it about the rotation? Can you make a planet collide and it create a belt, like in space? Would it be possible, for example, to play with material, like if you're creating with water or with smoke or with ice? Does you have to be like really subtle and tender, or sometimes really harsh and have heavy move? I don't know how far you want to go in this kind of being a creator, a sculptor, and play around and have millions of possibilities and really pass time on it and test stuff, actually.
So I don't think we will be doing this for our vertical slice, because we really need to focus on improving the interaction we already have. But for a more complete game, we thought about having different types of planets, such as gas one, so yes, to create a diversity in the thing you're playing with, and also to have the possibility to add rings around your planet and put little satellites. So we have some ways to make this game more complete and some things to follow.
Everything you described, yeah, we want to go for that. We want to go all in if we could, but right now we want to keep it simple. We moved away from the first project we had, so less time, and we want to have it clean first. But yeah, we would like to have all those interactions after that. Cool ideas, by the way.
Other questions, comments, suggestions? Yes.
When you're sculpting the planet for your vertical slice, you have the tree palette down there, and then you have another shape. I'm not sure what that is. What's the intent? What's your palette going to be? What can I paint it with for the vertical slice? What can I do to the planet other than pull it in and out and then put what can I put on it?
We had a more complex set of elements we are going to put on the planet, but we simplified it. So for now, it's really recognizable elements such as trees, volcanoes, mountains. For the vertical slice, it should be a really simple set, but maybe in a larger game there could be a system of combining elements to create new ones and to unlock more and more possibilities. But for our vertical slice, it should be really simple. Yes, 3, 4, 5 elements, but not not that much.
Sorry. Sure.
It's more important that you do something well than you do many of it. So if you can get one that looks really great, you win. If you get 2, fantastic. But if those 2 are lame or weak, then having 5 or more of them doesn't matter. So just do something really, really powerful and well. Give us a good expression, and then we can fill in going forward. So your vertical slice should be the smallest amount of content that you can possibly make, done as well as you can possibly do it. That's why I was asking the question of how many you're going to have for your vertical slice, because what I want the answer to be is 1 done really, really well, and if we get that point, then we'll do 2. So I don't believe in magical numbers that, oh, when it reaches 5, it'll be fun. If it works at 1, then we can imagine what 2 would be and 3 would be. But do a really good job with 1 or 2 of them first.
Last chance for a final question or suggestion. No? So let's thank again your Mandragora project. And let's welcome our land.
Ouah, tu me donnes le totem. Non, j'ai fait. C'est pas trop ma faute. Ouais, c'est normal. After a great climate disaster, humanity has almost been wiped out. After that, humans wandered into darkness during a long and cold era. Thousands of years later, humanity gets a new chance. A chance to live in harmony with its environment. A chance to respect nature, to respect the land they belong to. That is the setting of our land. Our land is a non-expansionist strategy game. To be more precise, it's a 2D turn-based strategy game for solo player on PC. The player leads a nomad tribe looking for sustainability. To do so, they have to find a balance between them and the ecosystem. Now, Corinne will explain you how the game works.
Hello everyone. So a little reminder about the vision. So as William said, we want to base our game on sustainability and balance, which means that we have to provide for the needs of our tribe, but we also don't want to mess up with the environment. And so our tribe solution to that is nomadism, because we have located exhaustible resources, and moving will allow them to renew. Explaining a strategy game gameplay is kind of hard, so we're gonna go step by step with that. So first of all, we've got a tribe, so a bunch of people coming together with the same culture. They are nomads, and they live in that ship that is flying and allowing them to reach places where they want to go. They have needs, so they need to eat, so we need to find food. Fortunately for us, there's a whole ecosystem with entities ready to be eaten around us. And we will be able to harvest animals and plants around us in what we call the area of influence. So let's see what we have around. So we have a tree that gives wood. That's not what we want. And we have mowings that gives food. That's what we want, yes. So we have population points that are an abstraction of how we're going to distribute our population around the ship. So we'll place one point on the mowings, and by clicking the end of turn button, you will get the food they provide. If you click if the point stays on the tile and you end turn again, you will earn more food. So 5 here and again, but there's only one wing left, but you will earn a lot of food. So we want to have for the player an interest both in draining all the resources, so having a worth amount of food, but also having that tension, because if you kill the wing, maybe the trees will go all over the place and predators will coming at you. So it's kind of a choice we have there, but we will do it anyway and earn 15 food, yes. And the -1 is the part where you will eat one by turn. Your population will eat one by turn. So now we don't have anything left for us to eat around, so we will need fuel, and our fuel for now is wood. That's fortunate, because we have trees just above us, so the same tactic will be used to harvest the trees, and having 2 wood and being able to use them to move on another tile with entities around, and being able to harvest them. So this is our core loop, and we wanted really to have that strong basis in which we can base the rest of our game, because in a strategy management game where you have a lot of systems that are linked to each other, you need to have main core system that works well before designing anything else. And we are now working on what will give the player the feeling of progression, since a lot of you said us at the last presentation, since we are not expansionists, we need to have that feeling of progression really in the game. So we have several tracks for that. First of all, understanding the ecosystem. So by observing the behavior of entities around, you will notice that predators eat herbivore that eats plants, and they all. So if you kill all the trees, the wings will die also, and you won't have anything left to eat. So that's what we meant when we say keep the balance, because if you mess up with everything, you won't be able to survive for long term. And entities have complex behavior, so they have biomes on which they can go. They have specific biomes regarding what they want, and they can have specific behavior, such as fighting when they cross each other's path. And we want everything to be predictable, but enjoyable, and trigger the curiosity of the player by doing that complex ecosystem. We also want to have the player to follow a storyline with main goals that will allow the player to discover the main systems and get to an end by doing every one of these main goals, but also side goals to explore the gameplay and more minor systems. We also want to get progress through that feeling of progression through level design. For example, having a rare resource that is not easy to catch. For example, you have to go to that star with population here, but you don't have entities, so you have to store enough food and enough resources to get there and to plan your trip. Or having a system of seasons that make one zone impossible to live in, and so you have to change and plan again, plan your trip and store enough resources for that. And so for now we are only punishing the player when they don't keep the balance, because if the balance is not kept, they won't be able to eat and harvesting anymore. But we can also reward them if they do keep the balance by making shiny or rare entities spawn into when they keep the balance for X turns at some place. And I will let Raphael talk about the art direction.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about art direction, but first I'm going to show you a little insight of what we want the game to look like in a few weeks. Okay, so as we said before, our land is a game about harmony and balance between humans and nature. So we really wanted to focus our design and our sounds on these two entities. So first, about nature, we want the player to have or to feel like he has a reason to preserve it. So we want the nature to be really beautiful, majestic, and most of all, we want it to be full of life. And about the people, we have a camera point of view and a type of game where you can feel like you are distant from the people, like you are superior to them and you look them like a god. And we don't want that. We want the player to feel like he belongs in the tribe, like he is leading them rather than owning them. And we also have a great sense of nomadism in our game and in our design and in our sounds. We really want the movement to stand out. So how we do that? First, in game art, we created a really diverse fauna and flora that we want really to be detailed in their animations. Because we think that little animations that you put everywhere in the world will bring life to this world. So for example, here on your right, on your left, on your right, yes. Here on your right, you have these animals that have different animation, whether or not they are hungry. And that's the type of little details that we want to bring in our game art to really make the player feel like he has buzzing life around him. About the people, that's something that we are working right now. That we're working on right now is to give a visual identity to these people, because we want the player to be able to relate to them. And we also are working on humanizing action. We want the player to feel like he's leading people, not just a sheep. And then about sound, we work really closely with the game art to be able to give really the same feelings with art and sound. So, for example, the feeling of majesty that we want to give with art, we want to have it also in sound. So we, for example, for the feeling of majesty with music that we compose for orchestras, and that is in a major and modal scale to give a sense of greatness. And we also really work on our ambiences, because we think that it's the core of nature. The ambiences we want ambiences that to be really detailed and dynamic. So as you can see here, it's the Y sessions with just 3 biomes, and these biomes are modulated by all these game parameters. So we have a sense of randomness and not hearing the same thing twice, like in real life. And for the people, like in game art, we want to give a visual identity. Here we want to give a sonic identity to the people. So we have a recurring instrument in the music, for example. That is the bansuri flute that we want to represent our tribe in our music. And currently we are working on creating diegetic UI sound. Also for music, we would like it to be human. It means that let little mistakes happen. When we record, for example, a flutist, we want it to be able to make little mistakes and to improvise a little bit to feel more like the music is human and not played by a machine. Now I'm going to let William talk about the time we have.
So now we will present to you the roadmap of our production. First, for the last 2 weeks, we worked on what you saw today, the core loop, the world building, and the animation. Today is a project review. After today, for the next 2 weeks, we will focus on biomes, level design, median loop, and also on the UI. After that, we will be in a polishing phase where we will debug, balance, document the game. We will also prepare the presentation of the final vertical slice. You can, of course, come upstairs to see us and test the prototype. But for now, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes.
I love strategy games. That's what I play for fun for me. So now I want to kind of tear your strategy game apart a little bit to understand it, and try to clarify between vertical slice and end game when you answer. So you have food types, 1, correct? You have fuel types, 1. You have predators, 1 type? Always 1 type? Maybe? Okay. You have I saw mountains there, obstacles for movement. So that's what I saw in your presentation, and I took notes on everything I saw. is there more for the vertical slice about what can be in a hex, in a tile? And can you tell me what your plans are for the vertical slice and for the end game about what each thing can be in a tile?
We want to add some variety to that with adding a new entity and really have kind of a loop between entities, because for now it's a chain. We also want to emphasize on the population and have variables and resources that come from them. For example, something as happiness or something like that. And play with it. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No. Let me ask it a little different. Bear with me. Thank you. So no, what I'm trying to understand is, for the vertical slice, the gameplay is relatively simple, right? I'm here, I fuel and eat until I see a problem coming, and then I move. And I'm not clear on the number of decisions that are available for me to make, because without permutations of information, the decision making is very, very linear. So I want to know how many things I will be able to choose between in order to make a choice and have that be very subjective rather than, oh no, this is absolutely always the best choice in the game. So I need to know how much permutation you have in order to know what space you're playing in. You need to know how many permutations you have to know how much, how much time people will spend playing, because if they only have 2 choices to make and those 2 choices are always, there's a better answer, people won't continue to play the game. So I'm looking to know what you're thinking about, how much permutation you're looking for in both the vertical slice and in the final game.
We thought about a system between games, like a book where you can unlock things about the world building, etc. And you can unlock this by doing achievements, like don't eat these things or do these things in the game, so the player can explore the different situation and explore different choices, and not only the best choices, but experiment things.
And yes, for now we only have those 2 main interaction, but we are planning on doing some more. I'm not sure of how many we will have on the vertical slice, but we are really wanting to add above what we have to to keep those 2 vital systems. Like you will need food and you will need fuel to survive, but yes, we will probably have other resources that are not as vital, but will be more long-term choices, and that's what we wanted to add, and that's what we are designing, and we are looking at what will be our priorities into every one of our ideas into that.
Yes.
I have a question about the end game. What happens? Is it only when you have a game over and the game is endless and you keep going until you die or you lose? Or do you have an objective to reach? Maybe a number of population, or what is the long-term objectives?
About the end game, so either it's game over or it's following that scenario we've talked about. And so discovering first the main systems, and after having random elements coming through that scenario, and see how the player is able to overcome them. And yes, the end game will be the end of the scenario, and that's it.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi, maybe I missed something, but I remember seeing or hearing about a wind mechanic in the previous presentation. Has this disappeared, or is this still considered? I don't know.
So yes, we talked about the wind at the last presentation, but for now, so as I said, we will want to have that core loop really working, and wind is, we put it in the second plan regarding that, because it will have probably an influence on movement, but we are currently designing it, and we are yes, for us it's a system that's above the vital system, so it's something we are currently designing. And so we didn't want to talk too much about that right now.
Next question. Yep.
Hi, I wanted to know if you had a visual target for the game, or a competitor you thought was a good reference point, because at least to me, some of the assets are good and have a good visual quality, but as a whole, I don't feel the game really comes together. And I know, for example, games like the Nkama productions like Wakfu, or they're very simple games with simple assets, but there is a strong art direction and something that is very likable. And from what I see in the presentation, the assets don't really match together. They don't create a pretty and nice mix. So I wanted to know if you had just a target, something we could look at and tell ourselves, oh, is it good enough, or we can do better, or something like that.
Actually, the whole process of visual isn't ended. We have some works more to do to create the uniformity between the assets. So it's ongoing. We're working on it. We will do it with the sound designer to make a global, which is in harmony, visual and sound design, and visual. Yes, we have some references that we target. There are always Northgard, but most of our references or games that we like are in 3D. So we have to adapt them in 2D. So, but yes, we have targets that we aimed for the visual aspect.
For example, we look at the strategy map of civilization that is in 2D, and it gave us some inspiration at this for this point.
Do you think you're close, or what's your perception?
We are not close of the strategic map of civilization, not at all. But we are thinking of one, maybe, when we dezoom the camera. But at this level, I can't say, yes, we have a 50% of between us and this game. It's not quantify. We can't quantify it. I think that we have a game art style which is a mix of a lot of games which are not especially strategic games. We like Zelda, so we are really, really far from Zelda Breath of the Wild. We were inspired by For the Colors, for example. There is also Rayman or all of those games which have a strong identity, but we didn't say, okay, we will make Rayman-like style or else. So it's complicated. Okay, thanks.
Thanks for the presentation. Personally, I liked the art. I thought maybe it likes a bit of maybe a blend overall, like the elements on the map. That maybe they're not connected enough, you know. But if you have like a shadow on the map, some sort of ambient occlusion of some sort can help. But overall, like the color palette, the moods, the creatures on the maps are really cool. So I think you are really in a good direction at this aspect. But art on a tactical strategic game like that is not only what happens on the map, it's also the interface. So get ready. So this is for designers, for UX, ergonom, for everybody, for text, art. Get ready to level up on the interface, on icons, fonts you will use, signs, feedbacks. Because on a game like that, is like half of the job is having a good interface and a good loop, which interactors I have, what inputs can I give, how the game tells me I can do that, I cannot, how I can put myself in the world. So yeah, get ready guys, because there are some stuff to do.
Do you want to react or no? Okay, so last, yeah.
So on the positive, I really liked the way you started the presentation. I thought that was very, very strong, much, much better than what I've seen before. So kudos, that was very good.
One last question or remark. So let's congrats the Our Land team. And let's welcome the last project of today, Attuned.
On attend un petit peu. Hello everyone, and thank you for being here for this presentation of Attuned, the game where in the dead world you inspire movement. We're very happy to present to you our progress, but let's have a quick reminder of what Attuned is about. We are a third-person action-adventure game, blending exploration and platform. And the central core of the game is that your abilities and movement depends on the type of terrain beneath your feet. We are targeting towards three main types of players: the thrill seekers, the exploration enthusiasts, and the element-bending daydreamers. We also are aiming toward PC and consoles. What is our experience about? Actually, Attuned is based on three main pillars. The primal connection with the environment, so we want an environment that is individualized, and we want to really create a link and a relation between the character and the environment of codependency and intimacy. We also want a movement-driven gameplay and story. We want a continuous flow in our experience, and all of our interaction are movement-based. That means that we don't have an interaction input. You either cross or go nearby or stop on element to activate them. We also want to have a spiritual discourse on eternal life. It is the central theme of the game and a cohesive in the narrative and the gameplay. And we want to rely on the player's investment. It's not something that's given, it's something that you must find and reach. And also something that's interesting is our rhythm intention, because we really want to focus on two main rhythms and have a contrast between a contemplative one and thrill. And our experience is really between going from one to another, and that is something that we want to achieve towards our level design. I'll now let Thomas explain to you who you are, so you can have a deeper perspective on that.
Thank you. So who are you? Well, you are Oya. She is a Forsaken priest of a decaying organization called the Attuners. She has the power to attune herself with the elements she touches. It means that she can harmonize her body frequencies to the elements she touches. She is someone very fierce, very individual, and she does not like the company of others. She'd rather be in the wilds, seeking the company of the ground, of the rock. So you are Oya. But what can you do? Well, we will show you some work in progress terrains with which you can interact. So first one is the sand terrain. It's the terrain of lightness, so you can jump higher. So it's for platforming phases. But we also have the rock terrain. On the rock terrain, you start slow, but you gain power and raw strength as you go. And you also can destroy obstacles. Then we have the water terrain. So on the water terrain, you are very quick and you can slide and avoid obstacles. Now, I let Yannick talk about challenges.
Now that you know a bit more about the terrain mechanic, how are we going to combine them? Here are some examples that you might find. We have the activable arches that you saw previously. And what we want to do is to build our level design on player skills. So here it might be on precision and perception. Those are the leverages that we are building a level design upon, and the progression of our difficulty. We can also have a situation of destructive jump. Here you have to gain height by using the sand, represented by the yellow platform. And as you are on the top of the biggest one, the speed that you accumulated with your momentum is powerful enough to destroy the obstacle in red. And we really want to give the player a sense of freedom and freedom of choice. So you can have situations when you can have multiple pathways. You can either use the sand to go on the roof, or go under this structure and destroy the element that is blocking your way. Okay, so you know you know who you are, you know what to do, but what do you want? Actually, your goal is to attune yourself with the wind. It is something that is impossible. Nobody has ever done that, but that is why our character wants to do. We have many literary and quotes and cultural references, but the biggest one and the most iconic one is from Alain Damasio, La Horde du Contrevent. Windwalkers, we are made of the fabric from which winds are weaved. And so how do you do that? How do you attune yourself with the wind? The question is, you have to reach the aqueduct. The aqueduct is the most spiritual thing in all of our world. It's the only source of water. You have no rains, no rivers. Everything comes from this place. And this is your visual landmark, and this is where you have to go. So if this is our entire game, our vertical slice will be here, close to the center. And it would be divided into 3 main spaces. The first one is the cistern. It's dry, and it has the function of a playground. So you have multiple terrain that you can combine. You can have a lot of space and experimenting different situations. We got inspired by several architectural references, or natural. And then after the cistern, you go to the canal. The canal is, well, we talk about the different rhythm. The canal is really the place where you have this thrill rhythm, because we want to have a water glide that is hurling you like a tidal wave. And it's quite narrow, but we would like to have as much verticality as we want, as we can have, and just go and at full speed. And then you have the garden, and the garden is a reward area, but also a contemplative zone when you can retrieve lore and you can have more narrative, environmental narration, and learn more about your story and the story of the world. Speaking of which, as we have 2 different rhythms and we have a contrast between one and another, we also have 2 different atmospheres. This is the atmosphere of the open area and the outside, with this pink characterized sand and very wide space. But we also want to have a contrast with more secluded areas, more cold and eerie, like crypts or secluded temples. I'll not let Thomas conclude with the state of our production today.
Thank you. So about production, you see we have huge scope, and we decided to go organized to do that. So we started by building knowledge between the team. So we had formations by our programmers who taught us how to use Unreal Engine and versioning, stuff like that. We also did a lot of research on what we wanted to create before building the world and the tools. So it was very nurturing. Also, we tried to think modular. So it's the case for level design. We made a lot of action blocks to test out every situation, see what is working, what is not working. And also, since we spent a lot of time crafting the character, we tried to use a very procedural approach for environmental design. This is something that is helping us right now, creating a lot of iterations very fast. Also, we built tools. So in the left, you can see the tool for our level designers that was made by our programmers, and it helps changing the values of every terrain, every power you have, right in the engine while you play. So it's really a boost in speed. It helps us tweak really fast. And on the right, you can see a shader we made early on the production to test out really quickly colors and mood for our spaces. So now we have a lot to do, but we have the tools to do that right. And in the following weeks, the level design will be fleshed out, and it will help us show you next time a better glimpse of our universe. And speaking of a glimpse into Attuned, let's watch a little teaser.
Thank you very much for your attention. We hope that you liked the presentation. Please follow us and our progresses on our Twitter and our Instagram hashtag. We'll post regular progress day to day. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. And
First question. Yeah.
Okay, it seems like a LD-centric prototype and game, and it's really interesting for me. It's really cool that you work on game design with level design bricks that are really clear and really easy to read. I think that these bricks should be as readable in-game, so the texture should be really different between the different terrains than in your dojos, in fact. So pay attention to that. And I find that it's really cool to have architectural elements and references and skate parks for level design, so kudos to that. But just pay attention to feedbacks and signs for the grounds, because here the sand and the rocks are very similar, and I think this could be really tricky. Pay attention to that.
So thank you for the feedback. We're aiming at for the difference between terrains. We're a lot about colors between them, and we are we are working a lot on player perception of the space. Like we can see, we have some examples on the. Yeah, we did some gray blocks and some work on player perception. Where you saw that we work a lot on differentiation between terrains themselves, but we want the player to perceive in the space what he is aiming to do, what the space wants him to do. So we're talking about like signs in the space and arrows, like abstract arrows, like in this example. And it's really something where we were taking consideration of, and we are working on it. Yeah.
Another question? Yeah.
Couple comments and then one question. It's very cool to have in-engine tools. So programmer, fantastic. Who's the programmer? Good job. Excellent. Wonderful. It's easier if you can get the artists and designers to build the game by giving them tools than having to hand code everything that they want. So perfect. I find the camera shake every time I take a step, distracting. Just a comment. And then my question is, you say, okay, my goal is to tune myself with the wind. How? I go to the aqueduct. Why? To attune myself with the wind. It's a circle. It doesn't tell me why. It doesn't tell me.
Okay, the aqueduct is really, actually it's the god of our world, and we were thinking about, because we have a legendary figure, we are going more into the story, but we have a legendary figure who achieved to attune themselves with the wind. They're called the Windbound, and it's like how can I say that? Hypogryph, or hypogryph figure that is that people of and religious order are considering them as evil or like a menace. And but our character is so fierce and independent. She wants to follow the step of this legendary person, and the step of this legendary person is guides her in the story toward the aqueduct. I don't know if that answers your question.
As a player, I'll learn this from the
Yes.
storytelling and narrative that happens in the bigger game.
Completely.
It won't happen in the first game.
No, that's something that we will have to explain a bit more explicitly.
Thanks for the presentation. Almost the same question, actually. Where is it the goddess of the wind we are looking for, kind of? And or why are we using an aqueduct that is by nature connected to the water element to chase the air element? Why not trying to overlap the two elements?
Actually, attunement with the wind is something that is metaphorical. It's attune yourself with the movement itself. And what we want to say is that she has been the wind all along for all of her journey. She was inspiring movement in this dead world, and she realized at the end that she has already been attuned with the wind, and that was just, she took something metaphorical for something literal. And she thought it was a myth, but actually it was a complete metaphor. So in the narrative, at this point, she wants to reach the aqueduct, but it might be strange to think of it that way, but at the end of the game, at the end of the story, you understand that everything that she has done and where she has been has had a purpose, actually.
The music in the teaser at the end, who made that? Awesome. Awesome.
A very strange question, but what are the controls? You have the stick for movement, and you have one button. So to break rocks, you have one button when you are on the rocks, and to jump, it's the same button when you are on the. Okay, it's contextual. At the beginning of the pitch, I thought that it was only movement, so only the stick, and maybe when going on a particular element or ingredient, I will be able to break the rock or jump. Maybe it breaks the rock automatically. That's what I was imagining, but anyways, it makes sense also. So, thank you.
Do you want to add something to that, or?
So, at the beginning of the concept, we were aiming at putting some challenge on the terrain, on our behavior, the behavior of the player on the terrain, to gain an optimal amount of speed, and it needed a certain behavior. Like in water, we wanted the player to make turns, and on sand, we wanted the player to go downhill. And something like this, but it was like very additive, and we wanted to stay with the idea that less is more, and we wanted only one interaction button, that was the jump, and we wanted to use it on other terrain in other way that only jumping, because only having verticality on all terrains is not very interesting, and we tried to like a bit modify it on each terrain to get something interesting out of it.
Other comments, questions? You want to talk directly to the team in the boxes? So last call, no? So thanks again to you and to all the teams today. You Yeah, you can. And as I said, if you want to, we have, you have, for the one who are living in 1 hour, you have 1 hour. If you want to go see the students directly in the boxes, you're welcome. Thanks to all of you for the presentation and for the question and comments. And for the jury, if you can just fulfill the files for the feedbacks, just so we can quickly give them for the 5 remaining weeks. You don't have to finish the formula now, but just if you can be quick enough in sending them, so they can have your feedbacks and just fulfill it. Just maybe for next week. Yes. Oui. We will send you the presentation or a link to the presentation so you can have this. Thanks again.